I have covered many different types of anime over the course of this show, but the one type of genre that nips at my heels the most is, bluntly put, fanservice shows. Only in anime has the term fanservice been meant to infer an entire genre. Last episode's Agent Aika was technically an action/comedy show, but the last thing anyone remembers after seeing Aika is the action beats, and I think you all know why. I will never tire of saying this so long as it bears repeating. Tits have a way of making themselves noticed. This notion of fanservice as a means to label a type of show has me more perplexed than anything, especially now when we live in an age of free, almost instantaneous pornography. There used to be a time when being teased or titillated with scantily clad women or of the ilk was a huge selling factor, because there was a closed-off market for the viewership, especially for the younger generation of viewers. You either suffered the indignity of renting a porno at the mom-and-pop video store, and that's if you were over 18 at the time, or you rented an anime that you heard had boobs in it, but was mistakenly set out in the kids' film section. It wasn't unheard of that hentai titles like Wordsworth would be set next to Disney films, simply because the clerks didn't know any better. But today, anyone can see anything at any time. So how do you attract would-be viewers if the novelty of maybe seeing naked women is gone? Actually write a competent story. Oh, God. I can't even finish that sentence. Nah, you just up the ante and become borderline pornography. Time was you can get away with a steamy shower scene that may have just the briefest outline of a nipple, but those days are gone. If you want fan service in anime in 2014, there's only one title you need look to: Queensblade. A media franchise that asks the question, how can we make female battle armor even more ridiculous? Queensblade is the kind of anime that would have destroyed young otaku kids back in the 90s. You know you've tapped into the veritable male gaze if it's impossible to tell the difference between a fan-made porno book and actual official art. By today's standards, fanservice shows like Burn Up would be completely overshadowed. In fact, you could almost call it quaint. I mean, sure, the plot of the anime revolves around sex trafficking and it doesn't shy away from all that it entails, but at least you could make the flimsy argument that it's part of the plot. Ain't no such excuse for this woman's... What is that? What even is that? Hand boobs? Lord knows if I had tits like that I wouldn't be able to keep my hands off them either, but I ask you, as a human being, a citizen of this earth who is trying to make sense of this crazy life just like you, why? Why do you have an Egyptian princess in a world without an Egypt? Why is your queen a lolicon death trap with an armadillo strap-on codpiece? Why do you have a French maid, a pirate, a nun, and a... I don't even know what that is, but I want to know why they're all here. And don't tell me that they're all here to fulfill some lonely nerd's harem fantasy, because the last thing anyone with a dick wants to do is stick it in something that can snap it off like a carrot. So, you can imagine how well Burn Up has aged. In a lot of ways, Burn Up was the Queensblade of its time, a thinly disguised fanservice show that became inexplicably popular and grew from there. The plot was barely substantial enough to cover one single 40-minute OVA, but it was apparently strong enough to grow another 4-part OVA and 2 different television shows on top of that. Nearly 14 total hours of content has been produced by this franchise. A franchise about a group of women in skin-tight battle armor fighting crime. God, we were starved for tits back then. We begin our anime with a bit of flavor, as our main 3 heroines are on pursuit of a couple of kidnappers.
The suspect's vehicle is heading down Highway 9 into Tazumi.
Kimberly Yates. Wait.
They've got a hostage, Maki, so don't go off.
No, they don't have the balls! They don't have the sheer balls to cast Kimberly Yates, Amanda Winley, and...
On my way!
Tiffany Grant. Again. Yup, that's right. The 3 stooges of ADV make their triumphant return. What is this, the 3rd time these women have all been played opposite each other? Were they all just joined at the hip? Were they a package deal? Or did Tiffany Grant just pull a Marlon Brando and demanded her friends be cast too?
I will take the part of Peter Pan, but only for $1 million. Also, the part of Captain Hook must be played by my good friend Ben Gazzara.
I know you won't believe me, considering the footage you're seeing now, but the animation is actually pretty well done. Here, check out this sequence of shots in the opening, set to an appropriately cheesy soundtrack.
All pursuit vehicles, be warned of construction inside M9.
If you know anything about the process of animation, then that sequence just slapped you right in the face. At first, you're lulled into setting your expectations low since the character designs are pretty ho-hum, but then this shot comes out of nowhere and decks you right in the nose. See how the camera pulls in and out and shifts perspective to an overhead perch? The animators not only had to account for all of the moving scenery, but they also had to incorporate several layers of action going on in the streets below. Sure, the detail itself is pretty sketchy and it's herky-jerky in its presentation, but the ambition and execution is still admirable. And before you even ask, no, there are no other shots in the anime that look like that. This is early 90s anime, after all, not nearly as well-funded or polished as Disney films during the same time period. Those were flawless! Tiffany's Maki here manages to close the gap between herself and the kidnappers, and then proceeds to shoot the car with a shotgun! I mean, you do know there's a hostage in that car, and shotguns aren't exactly known for being precise. Oh, Jesus! What the fuck, Maki? Who do you think you are, Renegade Shepherd? You nearly shot an innocent girl in the fucking head, and you sent the car careening out of control. Charles Bronson and Death Wish would tell you to turn it down, and that guy blew up a gang leader with a fucking rocket launcher. Well, I guess that's one way to react to nearly killing a hostage, beaming pride. It looks like the kidnappers are working for a gang called the McCoy Gang, led by a guy named McCoy. Huh, he doesn't look like a McCoy, more like a Billy Idol.
Samuel McCoy, not content with owning a profitable chain of nightclubs and restaurants, he's also rumored to be involved in the white slave racket.
From hawking overpriced drinks and measly proportioned food to bartering over human life. Seems a natural career path as any. You've got to imagine that being a white slaver is a tough racket. I mean, yeah, there's that whole moral nosebleed you gotta deal with, but can you imagine the price-demand ratio? And good luck finding a buyer in this market.
President Gerald.
What, you mean Gerald Ford? I knew that son of a bitch was hiding something! No one's that clumsy without owning a few slaves! Wait a minute, that's not Gerald Ford, it's Wilford Brimley! He's been buying slaves with his diabetes money!
Hello, I'm Wilford Brimley. You know, when I first heard that I had diabetes, only one thought was running through my head. How am I going to afford a white slave now? Those cocoon paychecks dried up years ago. You hear me, you son of a bitch, Howard? But the good folks at Liberty Medical was there to help me. And they're there to help you. Through Liberty's easy-to-understand payment plans, you'll be able to call yourself a proud owner of a fellow human being sooner than you think. And if you're on Medicare, chances are your white slave will be shipped to you at no extra charge. And when you're done, Liberty will send another white slave to you within 2 business days. It's just like changing a light bulb, just with people. Having diabetes doesn't mean it's the end of the world, and it certainly doesn't mean that you can't have your happiness at the expense of someone else's. Call Liberty Medical today for a free brochure. Owning a fellow human being? Liberty makes it easy. Isn't that right, Object? He's having quiet time right now.
He's a pimp?
No, slave dealer.
That is really totally disgusting.
Yeah, pretty little girls like me aren't safe anywhere.
Keep talking, Pinky, and you'll find out how true that is. God damn it, did Kimberly Yates ever play a character that wasn't obnoxiously ditzy or bubble-headed? The woman has one speed, and that speed is cruising down the Ventura Freeway on her way to the Glendale Galleria.
So why haven't you busted him already,
Evidence. Until this morning, we had nothing on him.
What are you, the cops from City Hunter? If you don't have any evidence, then why the fuck do you think this guy's a slaver? This guy, Kenji here, decides to hand-wave away the bullshit and decides to ask Maki out. In the creepiest way possible, I might add.
Hey. You hurt yourself again. Why must you risk that lovely face?
Don't worry, it's nothing.
Can't help it. I love you.
Oh my god.
How desperate for tail must that pitiful excuse of a man be to use a line like that? Well, Suave, I agree that him saying he loves her is a bit... It's only used as a last resort. You start telling a woman you love her, you might as well hand in your balls and your man card, because you clearly won't be needing them anytime soon. How do you function?
Stuff it, Remy.
Oh, I wish I had a date. Can I come along with you guys and watch?
Sure, crazy lady. We'll meet you by the sanitarium. Don't be late.
I was just kidding.
Yeah, guys, I was totally kidding. Except for seeing you guys fuck, I was totally serious about that. Well, the bell strikes quitting time, and Maki and Kenji go off to fuck in a camper van, it looks like, leaving Amanda's Rami and Kimberly's Yuka to stare enviously on.
I sure wish I had a boyfriend like that.
Uh-huh.
The man literally lives in a van down by the river. Why do you two want his winner so badly?
Finding the right guy is pretty hard.
You mean you're not getting laid either?
It's temporary.
Hello.
Hello? Well, tall, dark, and shit-your-pants scary here needs to find Kenji real quick as there's been a break in the McCoy case. So the three of them crash Kenji's fuck van. Oh god, he really does live in a van down by the river! And what kind of a van has a fully equipped shower like this? Jesus fuck! Stop doing that, you asshole! You're worse than Batman!
So that's what that feels like. Look at this. Our canary has started to sing.
Kenji?
Sartrate 7?
Huh?
It's a new club for people with more money than common sense.
I've been there before.
Okay. Point to you, anime. That was a good one. The five figured that the club is a front to traffic the young, supple slaves and decide to carry out an undercover sting to thwart the operation. And it looks like that'll be their only lead, seeing as how the kidnapper who squealed has a new hole in his chest. And for some reason, the anime decides that this is a perfect chance to have a non-sequitur video game parody.
Now you must rescue the princess from their infernal clutches. Play Quest Dragon, number 31. Pray for eternity. A new legend will be born.
That's it? You went so far out of your way for a lame Dragon Quest joke, and then, as if to spite us, you just let that joke hang in silence like a bloated corpse at the end of a noose for 5 seconds. Did Andy Kaufman write this? The girls set out on the town, trying to act as the honey in a trap to capture the McCoy gang in the middle of an abduction, which means that Maki has to wade through the painful sight of white people dancing, while Raimi is... in hell? I have a feeling that this is supposed to be another non-sequitur parody, but of what, I'm not entirely sure. But what I do know is that the music is entirely wrong. I'll give Burn Up some slack since it's difficult to portray humor across a language and cultural barrier, as I've gone extensively into in my Ultimate Teacher review. At the very least, you could say that Burn Up's jokes are aimed more broadly than your typical anime comedy. How broadly? Rambo broadly. It's just too bad that they can't seem to write a joke that goes beyond, hey, there's a lot of sequels to Dragon Quest and Rambo, am I right? Seems that Yuka forgot how a honey trap works and gets herself kidnapped. And even Renegade Maki here is unable to stop it, since no one can beat a fucking ninja in the shadows. The girls manage to recover at the police hospital, and yes, the police have their own hospital in this world, when they find out despite everything that happened that night, the police got nothing.
How'd it go?
It didn't.
Well, why not?
Same reason as always. We got no solid evidence.
A cop being kidnapped from his nightclub isn't enough?
Circumstantial.
So, the fact that you got a confession from a known member of the McCoy gang saying that they like to hang out at that bar, And you also know for a fact that several of the kidnapped women were last seen at that bar. And yet...
Circumstantial.
the fucking cops and Gone Girl were better detectives than these assholes. And those motherfuckers couldn't smell fish in a Seattle cannery.
So you say you were hit by this blunt instrument and lost pints of blood?
Yes?
Where were you hit again? 'Cause you don't look like you have a wound that's capable of spurting that much blood out.
I don't know.
Well, that's good enough for me. Who's up for shenanigans?
It looks like it's more than just police incompetence that's keeping McCoy free, though.
Chief, can't you do something?
McCoy's got some powerful friends. You're the ace detective. You go figure it out.
There's gotta be a way.
Do you think I'd be sitting here if there was?
That wasn't a clip, that was the entire scene.
We can't! It could cost us our badges!
And what about Yuka?
Fuck her. Well, my words have fallen on deaf ears as the two decide to go rogue and rescue Yuka and bring McCoy to justice.
Let me scramble the SWAT team, Chief. I'll take all the responsibility.
Okay, now he's just channeling Dr. Weird.
It's not different at all! Is it, Steve?
The cops say fuck it, due process is for pussies, and decide to roll out on McCoy's mansion. And even though McCoy knows that the cops can't do anything within the legal parameters, he has his men open fire on the cops, thereby completely negating the point of buying the officials off. Meanwhile, Raimi and Maki storm the mansion and rescue Yuka, and the anime basically plays out in one long protracted firefight. It's actually kind of a letdown that the last 15 minutes are basically canned shots of the girls firing assault rifles, often at targets we never see. It's a bad sign that your anime has to compete for the audience's attention with their watches. Of course, the girls are in trouble when McCoy makes his entrance, mocking them with glancing shots and general bad guyness, but hubris proves his downfall when the cops manage to break through his guard. And honestly, it just feels like the anime was just itching to end itself, because this is literally the ending.
Hello.
Banba!
And that's that.
Well, that was certainly worth $20. The anime is barely 40 minutes long, and considering what happens in that 40 minutes, they really had to stretch the paper-thin plot to get it that length. I have covered plenty of different kinds of anime over the years, but this may be the first title I would call inconsequential. There is literally nothing about the show that justifies its existence, which is made more painful by the fact that it does have the capacity of some surprisingly good jokes and impressive moments of animation, but it simply doesn't have enough of the both of them. Even the most forgettable anime I've talked about does serve and meet a need that the viewer might have, but I can't think of one reason to watch Burn Up. It's not bad enough to be funny, it's not good enough to be good, and it's not sexy enough to be fanwink material. I suppose you could take this to mean that Burn Up is one of the worst anime I have ever reviewed on this show, but I wouldn't even give it that much, because it doesn't deserve to be the most of anything. It just exists. That's all I can really say about it. Well, lucky for the both of us, I do have a lot to say about our next title. It's about time we dropped in on our favorite Valkyrie bitch, isn't it? Till next time.
Owning a fellow human being? Liberty makes it easy. Isn't that right, Object? He's having quiet time right now. Because he's been a bad boy. Tonight he's gonna get a whooping. Real whooping. None of that pains-in-the-ass whooping. I don't know what his previous owner was, but he was weak in the wrist, I tell you that. Deserves to have his cheeks bled. Red.
Do. Long live your Lord High Regent Sage! Long live Benetopia!